Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. There is a couple of topics that I would like to discuss today. The first topic is that Xi Jinping will likely face his Battle of Waterloo at the 20th National Party Congress. This issue is influenced by the 2020 US presidential election. It is also related to Hong Kong and the pandemic. Let's take a look at what happened on July 20th. It is no exaggeration to say that half of Henan province in China is underwater, and the CCP again blamed the flood on Mother Nature. Henan Daily described the heavy storm as something that occurred once in 1,000 years. The Henan Water Conservancy Department even described the storm as once in 5,000 years. However, the truth is, the Zhengzhou Meteorological Bureau was established in 1951, which was only 70 years ago. For the 930 years, or even 4,930 years before, did the rainfall of this ever happen? How could the CCP officials conclude that the rain was once in 1,000 or 5,000 years? I would like to say that the CCP itself is the disaster that China faced once in 5,000 years. The moral values of the Chinese people today are at their worst over the 5,000 years of Chinese history. The moral standard lowered over the past few decades, and now there is no standard anymore. A video showed that on the Zhengzhou Metro Line 5, commuters were trapped in the subway cars and waited desperately to be rescued. The water went above their chests. It is a painful scene to watch. But meanwhile, Henan TV was playing an anti-Japanese drama, while CCTV was showing flooding in Germany. Under the communist rule, we see disasters happening repeatedly, and every time the CCP blames it on Mother Nature. But later we always found out that human factors outweighed the natural factors. According to the state media, 500 people were evacuated from the Line 5, with 12 dead and 5 injured. But the rainstorm started as early as the 18th, and there were many severe weather warnings issued about the storm. Why didn't the government suspend subway services? There are videos on the internet showing a large number of buses and cars were already stuck on the streets of Zhengzhou City by 3 p.m. With China having such an extensive surveillance system, I don't find it believable that the officials of Zhengzhou didn't see what was going on. I think anyone with common sense would have stopped the subways, imposed traffic controls on roads of lower elevations, and evacuated as many people as possible. This seems like the most obvious plan of action. And yet, the authorities did absolutely nothing until 3 hours later. What is even more shocking is that an hour later, at 5 p.m., a 200-millimeter rainstorm hit Zhengzhou, and yet Zhengzhou's subway continued to operate. Passengers on the subway were continually calling for help, and the officials did not hold subway operations until 6:10 p.m., which cost the passengers' lives. In the 2012 flood of Beijing, the amount of rainfall was similar to that of Zhengzhou this time. People drowned in their cars, and the overall situation was the same as that of the Zhengzhou subway system. And yet, the Forbidden City in Beijing, a city built in 1406, had little to no flooding. Even with all of the advanced technologies of this day and age, a city built 600 years ago during the Ming Dynasty still has a better drainage system than what was in Beijing in 2012. Currently, many cities in China, especially newer ones, have terrible drainage systems. This is because they cost a lot of money and effort to build, but have little to no surface appeal. Conscience and morality are two traits that don't hold ground within the CCP. And whenever natural disasters that could have been prevented crop up, Mother Nature is to blame. As long as the CCP is still in power, events like these will be commonplace. Next, let's look at the conflict between China and the United States. For the past 4 years, Xi Jinping has been battered by Trump's trade wars. At the same time, the Chinese Communist Party has been secretly buying up Trump's enemies. The European Union, NATO, and the Five Eyes Alliance, and so on. The CCP could have used this opportunity to buy Europe, but unfortunately, Xi Jinping made a wrong move by taking over Hong Kong. By removing Hong Kong's autonomous status, Xi took away the prize of many interest groups, especially some powerful groups within the CCP. In the past, Chinese interest groups used the convenience of Hong Kong to collude with various international powers, making every one of them rich. However, Xi Jinping's ruling over Hong Kong has ruined this. Therefore, we have seen a lot of things happening around Hong Kong, and it has offended the UK and the EU. Even though Merkel and Macron are pro-communist, they have to take sides now. Not long ago, Biden met with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and I personally think that one of the main items on their agenda must have been the Chinese Communist Party. Biden is likely to have a final discussion with Merkel about the need to get Xi Jinping out of power. Merkel has to pick a side between the US and China. On July 19th, Biden sent a military plane to Taiwan for the third time to test the bottom line of the Chinese Communist Party. On July 20th, Chinese Global Times editor-in-chief Hu Xijin commented that China has already sent out a warning, so they will take action next. This is obviously an attempt at forcing Xi Jinping to take action. If the fight really starts, the CCP will face counterattacks from the United States, Japan, Australia, NATO, and the European Union. It is no trivial matter to have US military planes landing in Taiwan 3 times in 2 months. It paves the way for this to become a norm, and eventually leads to the setup of a US military base in Taiwan. The Chinese Communist Party may not be able to do anything by then. The US military will be in position to intervene as soon as any fighting starts. Xi must be very annoyed. Why does Biden not listen to him anymore? The CCP surely has a lot of dirty secrets about American politicians. But given that the media and the big tech companies are all in the hands of the deep state, even if they release these secrets, it will likely be blocked by the media and the big techs. There is nothing the CCP can do about it. Since the CCP is running out of tricks, we don't know if it will release more viruses out of desperation. Also, on the 19th, the US joined NATO, the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan in condemning China for a number of global cyber attacks. The FBI, National Security Agency, and the Cybersecurity and the Infrastructure Security Agency released a joint report detailing more than 50 techniques, and methods used by Chinese state-sponsored hackers to launch attacks on US computer networks, including an attack on the Microsoft Exchange server in March. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, "It poses a major threat to our economic and national security." On the same day, the U.S. Justice Department charged 4 Chinese nationals, including 3 security officials and a hacker, for launching cyber attacks against dozens of companies, universities, and government agencies in the United States and other countries. In a statement, British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said, "The Chinese government must end this systematic cyber sabotage and can expect to be held accountable if it does not." We all know that the Chinese Communist Party has been doing cyber attacks for a long time, and the US did not talk about it until now. This probably means the US has a plan now. Another move made by the US probably makes Xi Jinping even more uncomfortable. On the same day, Pentagon spokesman John Kirby announced that U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin will depart for Singapore, Vietnam, and the Philippines on the 23rd. This region has always been the backyard of the Chinese Communist Party. Although they have had various disputes with the CCP, they are usually too afraid to speak out. In particular, Vietnam shares a border with China and has been at odds with the Chinese regime over its oil and gas rights in the South China Sea. Chinese vessels are moored in the waters of the Philippines, claiming it to be their own exclusive economic zone. In May, the Malaysian Air Force deployed warplanes to respond to the intrusion of Chinese military aircraft into its airspace. Now that the US is coming, I think it is time for these countries to take sides, especially when the defense minister is coming this time. He has already visited Japan, South Korea, and India. When he wins over Southeast Asian countries as well, Xi Jinping will be alone with no allies in the region. Now the US is pushing the CCP step by step to see where the CCP's bottom line is. If Xi Jinping does not dare fight back, he will likely be crushed at the 20th Communist Party Congress by pressure from within the party, the military, and the country. Because Xi has long boasted that he would take over Taiwan during his term of office and realized the so-called reunification of the motherland. Another important indicator is the audit of the 2020 election in the United States. If the situation gets worse for the Biden administration, what will the deep state do? Will it divert the public attention to the Chinese Communist Party? The issues of Hong Kong, Xinjiang, religious persecution, human rights, and seeking answers on the origin of the coronavirus are enough to start a war. Once the war breaks out, results will be unpredictable. Lastly, we would like to remind our viewers that our platform may be restricted on social media. We would like to recommend the YouMaker platform to everyone. Please subscribe, and we hope to see you there. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you next time.